tell people, give us the Manatee overview as it stands today, and then I want to hit you with some questions, a few more questions on how you bootstrapped it and all that. But let's just go ahead and give the listeners an overview right now. Tell them about Manatee. Go for it.
Yeah. So ultimately, the big problem that I found with therapy today is that we don't support families or children, the 99% that they're not in therapy session. So how do you do that? So we really focused first on building a platform that enables therapists to set treatment goals, just like how we all set goals in our business. Like you have a session, you set goals in that session. These are the things that we're going to work on. That does two things. It creates accountability for the parents, keeps them involved. They're like, okay, cool, this is what I'm paying for. Like there's progress here.
Yeah.
But it also really empowers the child to, take ownership over their destiny, to get directive support, to know what they need to work on. So all in all, that focuses on a bunch of things when it comes to improved outcomes, when it comes to actual ROI pieces for the provider. So that was the first thing. It's like, how do you translate what we're working on in therapy and make it part of the day-to-day? Now, that platform does awesome. Providers use it. We're used by pediatric hospitals. But the big vision of Manatee always has been, how do you create this digital behavioral health hub for families and children? So how do we actually, from the bottom up, reimagine what therapy and mental health support looks like for families, whereby parents and families are empowered and supported so they know how to support their children with, additional special needs. But at the same time, it's technology enabled. There's so many things you can't do in an analog world. So it's like data driven. We focus on progress that's been made. We can gamify stuff. We can make it fun for kids. Because if you think about it, no kid wants to sit in a room to talk about their feelings for an hour once every week.
No.
With a stranger. Like don't get me wrong, like you have incredibly amazing psychologists and therapists who are so good at their job. But if you fundamentally look at that model, that's not actually how children feel best supported.
Gotcha. Now, is your customer, your revenue comes from families that sign up or from hospitals that suggest to families to use it, or both? What's the business model?
So the business model is a straightforward SaaS model. So we sell directly into health systems, so hospitals, community mental health centers, etc. They implement the platform, and then every family who enrolls in their services will use the platform to basically track progress and get their treatment plan.
I see. And does the family have to pay for it, or the family's already paying the hospital a certain fee overall, and this is part of their service they provide? Is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the family doesn't pay any additional fees.
I see. Okay. And you're selling to major healthcare companies. Who are some of the big fish that you've landed so far? Can you name some of them?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are actually part of the digital health lab at Children's Hospital LA, which is one of the largest pediatric hospitals. So that's a big pediatric hospital. And then we're also, piloting and working closely together with, the largest community mental health center here in Colorado. There's a bunch of other pediatric hospitals that we work with. So yes.
And when you got your first big client was in LA. First big hospital was in LA. Is that accurate?
Oh yeah. The first big hospital was in LA. First client was in Colorado.
Okay. Tell me about that first deal you got signed. Was that you? Like weeks of meetings? How did you convince them? Like, hey, I know you're not using anything like this, but because I know that had to feel pretty good. Getting the first big contract, was that your proof of concept where you said, wow, okay, we just signed a contract and somebody's actually going to pay us for this product?
Yeah, it's a very weird feeling when somebody values what you feel, what was literally in your head, that they're now willing to spend money on. That's it's a feeling that at least I hadn't really experienced that much before. I don't know about other people, but that was a new thing for me. Yeah, I think for me, selling is just, it comes down to like empathy, like understanding what pain you're solving for them, and that's what
Mm,
you're solving. And that's
mhm,
ultimately, so like for me also, when I guess when I think about building our product and building our platform, it's not that we build stuff because we're like, oh, that sounds cool, but it's literally we figure out at every single point, like, what's your problem, what's your pain point, like what's the challenge, and then you think about how do we solve that.
mm,
So I
mm.
think if you solve a big enough problem, people will pay for it.
I
So it
love
wasn't
that.
necessarily like
Yeah.
weeks of like, no, you're just like, hey, what's your problem? Cool. Like also, even when we started the business, I didn't build this platform just because I thought it was going to be a good platform. I really like, we built the first a demo that was solely based on feedback from providers. And then we iterated based on that. And then we launched it based on their pain.
Ah,
Like,
I
what do you
see.
want to solve?
I see. From the time you filed the LLC, or from the time you filed for the company until you got your first check for revenue, what was that? A year? 6 months? 2 years?
Um, so I actually incorporated really early. I don't know why, but I felt like that was an important step for me when there was
Okay.
actually nothing there. So I
Okay.
want to say I filed in 2018
Okay.
in say July. And
Okay.
then I was just noodling on the idea, doing market research, like all of that stuff. And then I met my co-founder, who's amazing, in, I want to say, end of 2018. It took me probably 5 months to convince him to quit his job because he had a really good job. He was like an engineering lead for this awesome tech company. And like convincing a co-founder, like, hey, you should now become unemployed with me on this idea that is not proven at all. That's a hard thing to do, but
All right. Yeah.
for me, that was March 2019. And I think that was the moment when we actually could build something.
Okay.
And from March 2019 to our first contract, and that was August 2019.
That's
So what's
pretty
that,
still,
6 months?
that's pretty fast. So what I heard you say there was you made sure you signed on a co-founder that was a tech person. So you were sales and marketing and relations, and you signed on somebody to handle the coding and the tech piece. Was that the relationship?
I mean, I think that doesn't have to be the relationship, but I think the founding team needs to be able to get whatever you're trying to do to market.
Okay.
So
Right.
if that's a technical product and you're not technical, you should have a technical co-founder. You have sometimes single founders who can outsource it, but I think that's harder to do.
Now, some of the listeners are going to say to themselves, "Well, how did she eat and pay the bills? And how did what the other guy just quit his job and had no income for 6 months? And what would you guys have a bunch of savings? Did you get some seed money from friends and family? How did you fund it?"
Yeah, so I think that's super personal for everyone, like how to figure that out. I will say there are a bunch of ways that you can do this. One, you don't have to quit your jobs. You can do a side gig. You just need to be willing to work hard. Like it's
Right.
the thing is, it's like it's all about priorities, right? Like, is that what you want? I also want to say, like, starting a business is really awful, like really awful. I would actually, unless you are 1,000% sure and kind of borderline insane, I would just say, like, it's it's much harder than I thought it would be. So,
So
but that aside, I think first, you know, smart founders, will do it do it like on the side, like
yeah,
figure things out. Like you don't
yeah.
have to quit your job. Like keep that security. Once you have some more conviction, you can choose to quit your job or not. I think in terms of like what I actually did, I did consulting gigs on the
Ah,
side. So
okay.
I would get like, I
Ah,
would get like a 20K consulting gig, and then that would keep me running for a little while. Also
ah.
because I didn't want to work full time for another boss, as I mentioned.
Right.
So that was my perspective. But so like I think you can either keep it as a side gig, you can, do some consulting projects on the side to kind of like keep going. But the best thing is honestly just to get revenue as early as possible and like force you to do that, get to that point.
Right. So you
Like
and your
ship really early, like
yeah,
get stuff out the door and see if people will pay for it.
I think that's great advice. Yeah, that's another mistake I think people make is They think it has to be perfect, and that whatever it is they're building has to be absolutely perfect before it quote goes to market. Yeah, that's not true. You need to get some revenue, try to get some proof of concept, see if anybody's even interested. You can always pivot and change and tweak as you move along. I totally agree. Now, your co-founder, did you say so were you guys like just a sweat equity? You neither one of us are going to get paid. We'll here's how we're going to divvy up the equity, and it's all sweat equity, or did you guys also put in some your own cash to survive, or a combination of both probably?
Yeah, it was a combination of both. But we also got invested, like we were funded by Techstars really early on. So
Oh,
July,
wow.
Techstars, we were funded by Techstars. So they put in 120 and 25. So
Ah,
they put in 145K, which
ah.
obviously helped us run it for a little while.
Now,
Um,
can you talk about that for a little bit for people that don't know what Techstars is? Can you just give a short, brief story on what you did? You look up Techstars in LA and say, "Hey, I want to come to a meeting." Give us the short version.
The short version is Techstars is an accelerator. There are a million accelerators. They're not all made equal. The kind of like the big two are like Techstars versus YC.
Yep.
You can look up the philosophical differences. But anyway, an accelerator's purpose is what the name suggests, to accelerate your business. They invest a small
Pre-seed.
convertible note or
Yeah.
save. Like
Yeah.
they get a bunch of equity in return, but you get like a 3-month program, usually whatever, a program in which you get a lot of mentorship, guidance, structure, and discipline to actually get to the next milestone, which in most cases for companies are raising their seed or getting to commercialization or something along those lines. That's what Techstars is, or what accelerators are. Again, like there's so many now. I would really investigate before you just jump the gun
Yeah.
on going into a program, and figure out what you want to get out of the program, and then how to get into the program. I mean, I think the best advice that I can give is ultimately people are people, and there's a lot of risk involved in startups. Know that the business you're pitching, any investor has probably heard 8,000 times. Like there's nothing really special about it. What's special is like your ability to execute. So if you want to get into anything, whether it's getting into an accelerator, whether it's getting funded, I think a lot more value and weight is put not on the idea, but on your ability to show that what you're saying you're going to do, you're actually going to do. So if you want to get in,
Mm.
start the conversation 3 months before and show, or 6 months before, whatever. Find who is important in that decision-making process and just show them, hey, I did this. Oh, like, oh, I want to give you an update on that. And then they start tracking like this line, and they start believing like, this person can at least execute on what they're saying. And I think that's most important for very early stage investors or accelerators, because there's really not that much data besides the team and your execution ability.
Really good advice. Was it worth giving up that early equity? Would you do it again?
Yeah, I also would. I feel like my MD Anna would be really upset with me if I said no. But honestly, like I think um,
Uh,
I think it really depends on what you want to get out of it. I know some founders who are like disgruntled about it. I know some founders who say it's life changing, and I know anywhere in between.
yeah.
The point is, what you get out is what you put in. So if you're gonna do it, just do it properly, and I assure you, it will pay itself back in tenfold.
Are you guys cash flow positive now, or are you still kind of at a burn and you're raising some more cash, or how much can you share?
Mm-hmm. So we're actually kind of closing our
Uh,
seed round,
ah,
so
ah,
we'll
ah,
see. So we're in
okay.
like the final stages of raising our seed round. It's kind of crazy
Good.
times to raise money.
Right.
Um, but we are, I mean, we are generating revenue. It's like a good MRR that's growing,
Good for you.
um, and that we focus on. But we certainly need some cash to kind of take ownership over the opportunity that's ahead.
Do you find the cash raise piece of it a pain in the ass, or you enjoy that challenge, or where does that rank among all of the other things that you have to do as the CEO?
I mean, if you can build a business without raising money, you should.
Gotcha.
That's the short answer. The longer answer is that is not always possible. And I think just with anything in the business, there are ups and downs. Like there are moments when I think if you're going to go down the route of fundraising, you have to know it's really hard. It's really painful. You're going to I think I have 89 funds who said no, like truly.
Wow.
And I mean, you can't take it personal. Like you can't. That's not like, that's the name of the game. The majority of funds will say no. And you have to, but at the same time, it's an incredible learning opportunity. I think it's very rare that you will have moments in your career, your professional career, that you get to pitch and sell the dream to really smart people, generally really smart people who will really ask hard questions and will nitpick it and will pull it apart. And if you don't use it as a learning opportunity, I think that's, just a waste of time. So just know when you're going into it, it's going to be really hard. You're going to get a lot of no's. You can't take it personal, but use it as a learning opportunity and take those data points to refine your story, to think through the risks in your business, to like close those gaps. Because most of the time, our investors always right no. Like there are plenty of investors who said no to Google or Airbnb or like, like they don't have a glass bowl or like a crystal ball on their desk.
Yep.
They're human, but they are really smart and they will help you think through really important components of your business.
Really good advice. How many employees now, or what's the team size as of today?
Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
5, and then when you get your series, you raise your next round here. You're going to double or something, maybe.
Yeah, we'll add some more people for this year.
What's been the scariest moment for you so far? Have you had one of those moments where your husband, it's late at night, you're having a glass of wine, and you're just like, oh Jesus, I don't know if I can do this.
I mean, all the time. Honestly, like I don't think that a day goes by that I don't doubt what I'm doing. And
that's true for most entrepreneurs, I think. Yeah.
I mean, it ranges. Like, I think one thing that I know that I'm grateful that I have this. I'm actually really like big on positive self-talk. So it's very rare that I'm like down on myself, but it's a combination of like, because we're also tackling a really big problem that feels really big and scary. Like what keeps me up at night is like, what if I'm building this and actually it doesn't make a difference? Like it doesn't actually help families. I think that's one that kind of like keeps me up at night. And like sometimes like, this is not going to work. Like this fundraiser is not going to close. Like this is a dumb idea. Like I might not be the right person. Like there is just a million things that you will have doubts about. But, I think it's not about the absence of fear. It's about working through it.
The Riderflex podcast features entrepreneurs, business executives, and the stories behind how they got there, as well as daily tips on career advice and job interviews. Our show can be heard just about anywhere these days, but you can visit riderflex.com and click on the podcast page to hear all the previous episodes and learn more about the recruiting and consulting services we provide. Contact us at the email address info@riderflex.com or 888-964-5876. Thanks so much for listening, and if you enjoy our show, please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like the episodes.